So now let me just show you Nessus first of all. It's really easy to install it. You can see guides on Google if you want. Otherwise, you don't even need to install it for this course because there is a really small part of it in the whole course. In fact, this lecture is the probably only one we'll be using it. So if you don't want to install it or you have some internet limitations or some other problem, feel free to leave it. I can just show this to you right here only. So when you install it, you will get to see a URL. It will redirect you, the installation will redirect you automatically to this location where you can just go and access Nessus. And you can see we get a warning here, but this warning is not something very dangerous because really this Nessus is using a self-generated certificate, and it normally happens with the enterprise level products that we use. So you can just say advanced right here and click the button which says accept the risk and continue. So you want to continue anyways. Right here, I have not changed the default credentials. It's going to be username as admin and password as password, and I just say sign in. And you can see it just pops up with an Nessus Essentials welcome dialog box. So in this case, let me just say close it. I want to show it to you from the beginning. Now, of course, I'm going to teach you how to use Nessus, but we will more be focusing upon when shall you use it, why shall you use it, and how should you use it in a more business level environment. Because most of the people who will teach this thing to you, normally what they will teach you is a very general way you do it. But I will talk about the most realistic way you can do it in a real business. So in this case, in Nessus, you can see like you can just try to familiarize with the folders here, my scan, all scan, trash, and policies, plugin rules. So things like that you just have here. In this case, we want to start with policies. That's how you will start in a real vulnerability assessment as well. Now again, it's only for people who will be doing it as a job, because if you're doing it yourself, like in a pen test, and you're doing it for some other company, in that case, you might not want to care about their internal policies. But again, if you're doing it like as a job, you're inside the company, it's like your daily weekly task, then it's good that you configure a policy here in Nessus. Now policies are like custom templates for defining what actions are to be performed during a scan. So basically you're going to configure a custom template right here. And what exactly does that mean? Well, you will see in a moment. So just go ahead on the policies tab and click on create a new policy. Now here you can just choose from a lot of policy templates for specific vulnerability scanning, web application tests, some compliances in the most below side. We have a lot of them. Now this can be really helpful in specific situations where you require some predefined actions, or you can say steps and configurations which these templates can offer you. But right now, let me just get the full control of the template using the advanced scan so that I can just start from scratch. So I just click on advanced scan, and this is how you start a policy. Now here is the thing, while configuring the policy, make sure that first you gather the original policies of your business, of your organization, which are like the written documents which they have implemented in the organization. So the thing is, you want to gather those policies and map those with the policy of Nessus. That's how you do things in real life. And the reason we are creating a policy here, so that we don't need to create a custom scan daily. We can just have our own template which we can use daily with different systems, and that will have the same configurations as required to comply with the company's internal policies. So that's what you do right here. Now for the advanced scan, let me really quickly tell you what you need to do. In the name, you can put anything here. In this case, let me say, for example, basic pen testing VM. That's the name of the virtual machine which I'm going to test or see right here. It's called basic pen testing 1. You will see how to set up it in the next lecture. so don't worry about that. But you give some name here, and these are good. Then you have descriptions, which are really handy to mention. So you can put anything here. In this case, let me just say, this is the policy for example company, and you can put pretty much anything you want here. And in the basic, I'm done. These were the only things I could do. Let's go to discovery here. And now it really depends if you want to ping the remote host or not. Sometimes in the policies itself, they may mention something like don't ping the remote host, then you will off it. In this case, let me keep it on, and then you can check the ping methods here. Do you want to use ARP, TCP, ICMP? What kind of scans do you want? The one which I recommend is TCP, or you can even check for UDP. That's a good one if your policy requires it. And you can check the destination ports as well. In this case, I'll leave it on built-in. Then you can select to scan some fragile devices here, for example network printers, and wake on LAN, so you can mention some settings for them right here. Let's go to the port scanning, and this is the main part for a network scan at least. So you can just give the port scan range here if you want, like you can give a number here. In this case, I will leave it on default, otherwise it might take a lot of time. And below that you can see local port enumerators. So Nessus, it has got a lot of local port enumerators which can be used, and in reality they are recommended to use. So in this case, I will also check one more option here, like verify open TCP ports found by local port enumerators. Check that, and below it we have some other options you can set regarding the port scanners. So I'll leave that for now because I want to finish this thing fast and show you how an actual scan looks like. So I go to service discovery, and right here you can enable or disable the search for SSL, TLS, DTLS services. These are some special services, and then you can check some other options regarding them as well. Then you can go to assessment, and here you can see you have a lot of options. You have general options, for example antivirus definition grace period, which means in how many days are the antiviruses updated. So you can check that right here, but in this case let's leave it on 0, because in this case I really don't think this machine has any security mechanism like that, even an antivirus, so we'll leave that. And then you can set a third-party domain if you want. In this case we are not testing a website, so we will not specify anything like SMTP here. Let's go to brute force. So do you want to do some brute force here? Well, you can do that, or you can just use the credentials provided by the user itself. So in cases when you have the credentials, you can use them as it is. If you don't have the credentials, you can uncheck them. So in this case, let me just say only is credentials provided by the user, even though I will not provide anything to it. So we will see if it gets us any error on that or not, and we'll see that in some moment. Then web applications. Do we want to scan web applications? Not really. In this case, it actually has got an web application here running on HTTP 80 port, but in this case, let's just consider we want to do a network service test, so we will leave that on disabled here. We can go to Windows. Now this can be sometimes relevant for you, but in this case, because my target system is just a Linux host, so it's all irrelevant for me right now. Do I want to do any malware scan? You can do that and set some extra options, but to be quick enough, we'll leave that. Databases, do you want to use detected SIDs or not? No. And the report, we can move to that directly. This is what we can get after all the scanning. So this is that report. You can set the options right here. Pretty much you will want to leave that on default stuff. You can even display the unreachable host, for example, if you want. But in this case, let's not do that to have a more clean report. We'll go up and select the advanced options right here, and you can see we have enabled safe checks, then stop scanning hosts that become unresponsive during the scan. So let's do that. Let's see if it works. And then performance options. So network timeout in seconds, you can set that right here, and a lot of other things. Now, one thing which I would like to tell you right here is the max number of concurrent TCP sessions per host. So in this case, I can just put unlimited here. I can create TCP sessions, a lot of them, because it's like an VMware, it's like a virtual machine here. But in real environments, just contact your network administrators and they can exactly guide you on how much can you set it. Otherwise, you may crash the whole system and maybe even the whole network. So that's the thing I had to tell you right here. And let's move on to next tab right here, which is credentials. So if you have some credentials, you can put them right here. In this case, you can see there are multiple categories, but in the category of host, which is for the operating system, I really don't see anything for Linux systems. But for example, if you were testing a Windows one, then you could have provided some credentials here as well if you have them and you're not doing a black box kind of test. Then you can provide them to enhance the correctiveness of the scan, and you can check plugins which are pretty much like extensions for your scan. Okay, so you can check them. I will leave everything on enabled. The reason to do that is because I want to get maximum results using all of the extensions. And do I have something else here? No, I do not have. If I just click anything, I can get to see some more information of them right here. So we'll leave that everything on their enabled position because that's pretty much good here. You can disable if you want. And finally, when you're done with the Nessus policy configurations, go down and save it. So that's the thing, the policy has been saved successfully. Now, you can go to My Scans right here and just say create a new scan. Now here, you can utilize some templates which I have looked at earlier as well. But since we have created our own policy according to the organization's policy, we can just go to the user defined tab right here and select our own policy. So we'll select that and you can see now I can schedule and basically configure my own scan, my specific scan which I want to be done using this policy, and it's really simple for me right now. So for the targets, I will set 10.10.10.129. That's the IP of this target machine basically. And then you have the folders. So you can create a lot of folders here, maybe to store different types of scan results. But in this case, let's keep it on My Scans because we have not created a new one. And name, description, you can change them. In this case, let me say something like first scan. Description I will completely remove, and you can even upload a list of targets if you have a lot of them. In this case, I just mentioned directly because I only have one target. Then you can go to the schedule tab and you can schedule the scan to be done automatically in a time period if you want. In this case, let me just disable it because I would like to scan the system immediately and show the results right away. You can set some things for the notifications, like you can provide an email address right here and make sure you configure your SMTP server first here. And then basically what will happen is when the result of Nessus will come, you will get a notification about that in your email. So you will not forget about that. And after checking everything and setting everything, just say save. And that's it. Your first scan has been created. Now, you can just go ahead and let me zoom out a bit right here. Okay, so you will be able to see we have the scan right here, and right here we have two options, launch and trash. If you want the scan not to be done, you can click trash to delete it. In this case, I want to launch this scan right away, so I just click on this launch button. And you can see it has been started. Now I'll pause the lecture for a moment and then we'll come back when it shows us the results. Okay, so I have now waited for around 5 minutes right here, and as you can see this thing right here, this little tick mark, it says completed. So now I can just click on this scan and you can see it has found 28 informational vulnerabilities and one high vulnerability. So let's see the results in the host first of all. Host will give you an overview of the machine basically. So scan details, it was done using which policy, what is the status, is it still running or it's completed or it has got some error. And severity base, it's CVSS v3.0. That's the scoring standard we are using right here. Which scanner was used? Local scanner. When it started, when the scan ended, and how much time it took in total. Then the overall bar chart for the vulnerability. So you can see 96% of the vulnerabilities were informational and just 4% were high. So if there were a lot of vulnerabilities, you could have seen it right here for different levels. Nessus uses these levels by default: info, low, medium, high, and critical. So let's check the vulnerability tab now. And as you can see, we have got the details of all these vulnerabilities right here. Since most of these are just informational, I'm not really interested in showing you that. Let's just directly check our high vulnerability right here, which when I click, I get to see the description about what exactly is the vulnerability and some things right here, the main solution or fix to this vulnerability, and then some references regarding this. So you get to see a lot of information about it right here. You also see the plugin details, then the ID, version, type, family, published, modified. Some risk information like the CVSS scores. In this case, the PACE score is 8.8 and risk factor is critical. So the good part about Nessus is that it does all these things for you in a very short amount of time, and it's a really good feature of Nessus that you can get all of these things in one place. And in the output you can see Nessus was trying to exploit the vulnerability and seems like it was actually able to do that to some extent. Then the exact port we were attacking, the hosts, and some more vulnerability information as well. So you see exploits are available and the patch publication date. So you can see more than a decade ago from when I'm recording this lecture, the vulnerability existed and the patch for it was already available. But still, this machine has got it somehow. Of course, because it is made an intentionally vulnerable machine for learning purposes. So we have exploitable with, we have got a exploit here which you can check, and some other reference information in the most below place. So that's the basic use of the vulnerabilities tab. You can check some top threads right here, seems like there were none, and some history about the scan. So that's the basic thing which you got to know from here. Now the thing is, you have got all these vulnerabilities, but I want to show you how to generate a report of Nessus which you can use pretty much anywhere you want. So you can just click on this report option right here and you can export them in multiple formats. Let me just click on PDF, and here you get to see that there are two types of report possible: executive summary and custom. Now, one thing which I would like to say right here is that the vulnerabilities which you have got, if you see the report for them, just make sure to not take corrective actions regarding them, and you should not even tell these vulnerabilities to your team which will fix them until and unless you have shown the executive summary to the management. And this is that executive summary report. What it does basically, it has the list of vulnerabilities which have to be fixed. Your duty is just still there, and then the executives, the management, they will decide what exactly should be done with these vulnerabilities. Do they want to accept the risk? Do they want to do something about it? How do they want to manage the risk which occurs by these vulnerabilities? So now you can just click on generate report, and now it's generating it. It's going to be giving us the report pretty fast in here. You can see in this town place, it's working on that. And here I get to see the PDF file. I can save it wherever I want and click on OK. You can see this has been downloaded. I just open the file And you can see the report in the Nessus own vulnerability assessment format here. Now, in business environments, it's really fine to use Nessus reports like as a daily task, because of course you won't be making custom reports for like a daily vulnerability assessment job or even weekly. But if you're doing a professional pen test for a client and basically for some other company, don't submit a report which is made by Nessus. Just take data from here and make report yourself. In this case, I have the table of contents, and below that, I have the summary, basically how many vulnerabilities were found on this host and the exact vulnerabilities, their name, their plugin, their ID, and the CVSS score. This is more than enough for what they really need to know about it. And what I was saying right here is that when you do a pen test for some other company, just take data from here. For example, you got this first vulnerability which is high, just take it from here, maybe see some definitions from the vulnerability side like these descriptions, and use a custom template to make the report yourself. In one of the last lectures of this course, I will show you one such very good template which I have created for reporting purposes that is mainly made for penetration testing, but you can even modify it a bit and use it for your vulnerability assessment operations. So that's basically how you use the Nessus Essentials tool. Remember, it's the free version of Nessus in order to conduct automated vulnerability assessment.